these agreements made behind our backs, it will simply not work, because you need, for any kind of deal, any kind of agreement, you need Europeans to implement this deal. You need the Ukrainians to implement this deal. So, I mean, that doesn't also look good. If somebody agrees something and, everybody else says that, okay, fine, you have agreed, but we will not follow this. Ukrainians will resist, and we will support them.
This is my video update on this Friday afternoon, February the 14th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the drone strike into Chernobyl, which happened a few hours after Trump spoke with Putin, and a few hours before the Munich security conference got underway. A drone hit Chernobyl, and of course Zelensky and the collective West mainstream media is saying that this was a Russian drone. A Russian drone hit Chernobyl. A very, very recognizable target for a Russian drone to hit right after Putin and Trump speak and right before the Munich security conference. How convenient for a Russian drone to hit Chernobyl. Chernobyl, huh? So Politico has an article with the title, "Killer Russian Drone Strikes Chernobyl Nuclear Reactor Cover," Ukraine says. "Radiation levels inside and outside remain normal and stable," says International Atomic Energy Agency. That's coming from USAID-funded Politico. Everything's okay. Radiation levels are okay according to the IAEA, but still, for the Putin to hang up the phone with Trump and then tell Gerasimov to fire off some drones into Chernobyl, man, you have to be pretty dumb to do that, huh? What was Putin thinking? And right before the Munich security conference, geez, man. Yeah, Zelensky's getting desperate. Very, very desperate. But anyway, that's the breaking news that came out this morning. RFK was confirmed yesterday as HHS director, which is good news. Congratulations to RFK Jr. Once again, Mitch McConnell was the only Republican who voted against RFK Jr.'s confirmation. Mitch McConnell voting against Gabbard, voting against RFK Jr. So the meltdown yesterday from the collective West elite was epic. It was epic, man. Boy, was it epic. After everything that happened yesterday, the call between Russia and the United States, the speech from Pete Hegseth, no NATO for Ukraine, no pre-2014 borders. That's what Pete Hegseth said. U.S. is not going to be putting boots on the ground. The Europeans, they have to step up and take over Project Ukraine. After all of that stuff went down yesterday, we had an epic meltdown from the European political elite. An epic meltdown. Kaja Kallas was speaking to reporters, and she just told reporters that if Ukraine and if Europe is not in the negotiations, then we're not going to help. We're not going to help with Project Ukraine. She just flat out said it. No, there's going to be no resolution to Project Ukraine, no negotiations without us, and if you leave us out, well, we're not going to help at all. We're not going to help. We're not going to help. We want a seat at the table, said stunning and brave Kaja Kallas. Sweden came out with a statement and said that Ukraine NATO is not off the table. That's what Sweden said. I don't think they were listening to Trump and to Hegseth. No, no, NATO is still on the table for Ukraine, said Sweden. Okay. I don't think Sweden got the memo that whatever the United States says when it comes to NATO, that's what's going to happen. If the US says that Ukraine is not going to get into NATO, then Ukraine is not going to get into NATO, whether you like it or not. Sweden, talk about delusional, man. The UK, the defense minister, I forgot the guy's name, not that it matters, but he said there are going to be no negotiations on Ukraine without Ukraine. That's what he said. No negotiations on Ukraine without Ukraine. That's what the UK defense minister said. The pirate Schultz had an epic meltdown. He lost it, man. The pirate lost it. He lost his cool. He started to talk about getting some sort of an emergency approved by the parliament or something like that in Germany, a state of emergency because of Trump's comments on Ukraine. Pirate Schultz is loco en la cabeza, man. Annalena 360. Oh, Annalena 360. What did she say? She was upset that she was not informed by Trump about what he was going to say with regards to Project Ukraine. Talk about delusional. Sweden delusional? No, Annalena 360 is delusional. Yeah, that's what she was upset about. That the Trump White House didn't inform her, of their plans. Let me read you her quote. She said this in an interview with Deutschlandfunk Radio on Thursday. The German foreign minister criticized Trump's team for not informing her about the calls in advance. We can't have talks without involving Ukraine. Peace in Europe is at stake. That's why we Europeans need to be brought in, Baerbock said. This is the way the Trump administration operates. That is why constant mutual communication is needed with the various players. That, too, is different from other times, Baerbock said in an apparent reference to the previous U.S. administration. This is not how others do foreign policy, but this is now the reality. Yeah, because Blinken always called up Annalena and always consulted with Annalena before he made a move. Yep. Annalena was Blinken's consigliere, right? Is that the word that they use in The Godfather? Yeah, that's what Annalena was to Blinkety Blinken. They always consulted the Biden White House. They always ran everything by Annalena 360. And now it's different. Now she's upset because the Trump White House is not running things by her. I think it's in the U.S. Constitution. I think the founding fathers, I think they had a clause in the U.S. Constitution saying that any foreign policy conducted by the U.S. government has to run through Annalena 360. We don't know who she is, but there's going to be some lady named Annalena 360 sometime 300 years in the future, and you got to run everything by her. And I think they put it in the Constitution, didn't they? I think so. I don't know. But Mark Rutte. Oh man, it's just getting better and better, isn't it? The meltdowns as I go along, they're just getting better and better because we reach the pinnacle, which is Rutte, who actually said in a statement that NATO never promised Ukraine entry. That's what he said. We never promised Ukraine would get into NATO. Of course not.
Well, listen, in Washington again, NATO committed to future NATO membership for Ukraine. But it has never been agreed that whenever peace talks would start, that peace talks would end anyway and always and definitely with NATO membership. That has never been agreed. It could be, but it never was that clearly stated. What I consistently have said is we have to make sure that whatever the outcome is, we have to make sure that Vladimirovich Putin will never, ever try again to attack.
What are you guys talking about, Ukraine, NATO? I don't understand. When did we ever say that? We never said that. NATO, Ukraine. Yeah, that's what Rutte said. Unbelievable stuff, man. Unbelievable. And then Bloomberg they got their economists together, and the economists, they started adding up. If Trump's plan goes through, his whole plan for Project Ukraine, for 5% spending on GDP for all of the EU, NATO member states, if all of this happens, Europe flipping the bill for Ukraine, for Ukraine's defense, for Europe's defense, for reconstruction, all of this stuff. Bloomberg's economists, they said that Europe, the EU, in 10 years is going to spend $3 trillion on all of this. $3 trillion. Trump's plan for Ukraine would cost EU $3 trillion, according to Bloomberg. Assisting Kiev's war effort without U.S. support will be a blow to the bloc's budget, Bloomberg economists have warned. $3 trillion. I don't know, maybe Zelensky can give the EU a loan. Maybe, I don't know. He's got to have at least, I don't know, 1 or 2 trillion. How much does Zelensky have? I give you a loan. 5% interest. Zelensky, he was asked about everything that went down yesterday, the Trump-Putin phone call and all of the statements that were made yesterday. And what was Zelensky's reply? He said that he wants 100,000 soldiers. That's what he said. I want 100,000 soldiers. And he also said, get this quote here from Zelensky, I don't perceive this call as a sign of priority that he spoke with Russia first. Although, indeed, it's not very pleasant in any case. I don't see it as a priority, but, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant. That was Zelensky's response. You could see that Zelensky, he's phasing out the green, huh? Didn't I say so? He's going to phase out the green. Slowly, slowly, he's going to move towards a suit and a tie. Give it another three months, if he can make it. If he can make it another 3 to 6 months, he's going to be suiting up very soon. He looked very panicky, though, in this interview. Very, very panicky. A lot of this. Very shaky, as he was saying that this was not very pleasant, the phone call that took place between Trump and Putin. Yeah, the Trump White House, they didn't consult with any of their European allies. Not one European ally, not even the most trusted friend of them all, the UK. The most trusted friend. The unbreakable bond between the UK and the United States. They were not consulted. Keir Starmer was not consulted on any of this. And they're having a meltdown. They are having a meltdown. I'm telling you, man, Biden, he really had the Europeans believing that they were allies, that they were friends, that they were equals. He really had them believing that. Unbelievable. They actually thought that they were partners. They were on equal footing with the United States. That's what Biden led them to believe. And they bought into it. They actually bought into it. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Greece, Spain. They actually thought that they were equal partners with the United States. Portugal. Incredible, man. Incredible. Let's talk about Orban's response, actually, because Orban, he summed it up really well. He said the EU has not earned the right to participate in negotiations on Ukraine with Russia and the US. You cannot demand to be brought to the negotiating table. You must earn it with force, good leadership, and smart diplomacy. Brussels' position, supporting killings for as long as necessary, is morally and politically unacceptable. That was Orban's response to the meltdown from Europe. Well said, Viktor Orban, well said. So Trump said yesterday in the Oval Office that there was going to be a meeting in Munich between Russia and Ukraine. And then Ukraine officials said that there's not going to be a meeting between Russia and Ukraine, that Russia was going to send a delegation to Munich. Interesting statement from Trump. The Munich security conference is underway. I believe, as I'm recording this video, J.D. Vance is actually speaking to the European vassals. And I don't know if there's going to be a meeting between Ukraine and Russia. Keith Kellogg surfaced, and he's talking about a ceasefire. He is saying that Ukraine and Russia, they need to have direct talks, and the goal is to get to a ceasefire. They have to get to a ceasefire, Kellogg said. So Kellogg reappeared, and he's talking ceasefire and direct talks between Ukraine and Russia. And Kellogg even said that he understands that Zelensky doesn't want to talk to Putin, and it's in the Ukraine constitution that they cannot negotiate directly with Putin and with Russia, and that Putin does not see Ukraine as Zelensky as the legitimate president of Ukraine. Kellogg acknowledged all of that, but he said that they're going to have to make compromises and there has to be direct talks. If there are direct talks, Kellogg said, then we can get to a ceasefire. Has someone told Kellogg what happened the other day? Has someone notified him of what Trump said, of the phone call with Putin, of what Pete Hegseth said? I don't know. It seems like Kellogg has not been informed of everything that happened yesterday. But anyway, that's what he said. Politico, the USAID-funded Politico, has an article with the title, J.D. Vance snubs Germany's Schultz at the Munich Security Conference. We don't need to see him. He won't be chancellor long, a former U.S. official said of Vance's thinking. So we don't know if Vance actually said this or is actually going to do this. This is a U.S. official said of Vance's thinking. This isn't even a U.S. official saying, this is what Vance told me. I mean, if the U.S. official said, Vance told me we don't need to see Schultz because he's not going to be chancellor any longer, then okay. But Politico's saying this is what someone was thinking. Vance, this is what someone told us who understands Vance's thinking. But I will say this, Vance doesn't really need to see Olaf Scholz because he isn't going to be chancellor much longer. So there is a kind of logic to it. Why waste your time with the pirate when the pirate will be chancellor no more? That is a good point made by the guy that understands Vance's thinking, whoever that U.S. official is.
We gather at this conference, of course, to discuss security. And normally, we mean threats to our external security. I see many great military leaders gathered here today. But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. Now, I was struck that a former European commissioner went on television recently and sounded delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany, too.
Going back to Trump, in the Oval Office yesterday, he said some more interesting things. He actually was talking about how this is Biden's war. Ukraine is Biden's war. He said that Biden is responsible for this war. He kept on talking about Ukraine entering NATO, and that's what got the war going. And he said he understood Russia's position. That's pretty much what what Trump said about Biden. So finally, Trump is saying this is Biden's war. I like that statement because he's finally saying this is Biden's war. That's what he needs to run with. Whatever happens in negotiations, even if we can't find a deal on Ukraine, this is Biden's war, and we're out of it. That's the message that you have to run with, President Trump. And even if you don't find a solution to Project Ukraine, as we have been saying on this channel and on the Duran, there are all kinds of other topics that you need to discuss with Russia. Ukraine is just one topic of many. So don't get hung up on Ukraine. If you can't find a solution to Ukraine, then exit Ukraine. Biden's war, but we're out of it. The Europeans can take care of it. The UK can take care of it. We've got to discuss with Russia all of these other important issues.
Yesterday were pretty accurate. I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO. I don't see that happening. And long before President Putin, Russia was very strong on the fact that I believe that's the reason the war started, because Biden went out and said that they could join NATO, and he shouldn't have said that. As soon as he said that, I said, you know what? You're going to have a war now, and I was right about that. This is a war that would have never happened if I were president.
But you don't think it's President Biden's fault, not President Putin? I mean, he's the one.
I think Biden is incompetent, and I think when he said that they could join NATO, I thought that was a very stupid thing to say. I thought when he said, well, it depends if it's a minor incursion. In other words, it's okay if Russia does a minor incursion. I thought that was a very foolish thing to say.
So Trump also said during these statements in the Oval Office that he wants Russia in the G7. He wants to make it the G8 again. Russia was kicked out of the G7 during Obama's term when Crimea decided to vote to enter the Russian Federation. That pissed off Obama, and he kicked out Russia from the G8, and it became the G7. And Trump claims that he wanted Russia back into the G7 when he was president, but the other G7 members did not want Russia back into the G7. I don't know how true that is. But now Trump is saying that he wants Russia back in the G7 to make it the G8.
G7, sir?
I'd love to have him back. I think it was a mistake to throw him out. Look, it's not a question of liking Russia or not liking Russia. It was the G8. And you know, I said, what are you doing? You guys, all you talk about is Russia, and they should be sitting at the table. I think Putin would love to be back. Obama and a couple of other people made a mistake, and they got Russia out. It's very possible that if that was the G8, you wouldn't have had the problem with Ukraine. And if I was president, you definitely wouldn't have had the problem with Ukraine. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. But you ask a very good question, the G8. It used to be the G8, and then these people threw them out. And I was arguing with Trudeau and with numerous of the people. Actually, Prime Minister Abe, a great man from Japan, agreed with me 100%, and some of the others did too. But I got there, it was the G7, as you know. They had already been terminated. I think it would have been very helpful, and it still would be helpful to have Russia be a part of that.
And I think Russia has no interest in entering the G7. Zero interest in it, because the G7 is not really that powerful of an organization anymore. It really isn't. The more powerful organization is BRICS, if you can call it an organization. BRICS is where you want to be, not the G7. And Trump said about BRICS, he said that BRICS is going to be no more. He said that he's going to place 100% tariffs on BRICS if they start to trade outside of the dollar and outside of the U.S.'s control. Not going to happen. You're not going to be able to break up BRICS, I'll tell you that right now. But I like it. It's a good test. It's a good litmus test for BRICS. Absolutely. BRICS needs to get tested. Let's see how strong BRICS really is. So I think Trump is a good test for BRICS. And I think BRICS will be just fine. And Trump is not going to spook them at all. Actually, Trump should engage with BRICS, because Putin said during one of his, I believe it was during one of his marathon events that he gives, where he's speaking for 3-4 hours. Putin said, look, BRICS is not looking to trade, to not use the dollar, or Russia is not looking to not use the dollar. We were kicked out of the dollar. We'd gladly trade in the dollar if we weren't kicked out of the dollar. You know, a solution to all of this is for Trump to engage with BRICS, talk to BRICS, talk to China, talk to India. He's actually meeting with India today, or yesterday he met with Modi. Talk to BRICS and just try to de-weaponize the USD. I don't know how you can come back from everything that has happened with the USD, the weaponization of the USD. I don't know how you can walk that back, but try. Try to walk it back a bit. Get rid of sanctions. That's a start. Get rid of sanctions. Try to build trust again in the US dollar. That's a solution. And then you can engage with BRICS. And look, BRICS is not going to go back to the dollar like they used to. Russia's not going to trade in the dollar like they used to. But they'll trade some, right? That's a solution. Trump also said that he wants to speak with China and with Russia about reducing defense spending by 50%. One of the first meetings I want to have is with President Xi of China, President Putin of Russia, and I want to say, let's cut our military budget in half. Yeah. Why not? Why not? The U.S. is spending close to $1 trillion on the military, and they really don't have that much of a lead, if any, on Russia and China, who are spending far less on their military. And is the U.S. really that much stronger? It's a good question. For $1 trillion, are they really that much stronger? I don't think they are. Russia has hypersonics. China has hypersonics. But Trump said he's going to create super hypersonics or something like that. But yeah, he wants a 50% reduction. I don't think China and Russia would go for that. But it's worth discussing with them. Look, what Trump is going to do is he can reduce military spending for the US, and he can just get the Europeans, because they're going to increase their spending into NATO from 2% to 5%. That 3%, what Trump can tell the Europeans is that 3%, you have to purchase American weapons. You have to fund American MIC companies. So he can do something like that, right? He can have the Europeans pick up the slack on funding US MIC. That's a possibility. Anyway, interesting statements from Trump. We have the news that since Tulsi Gabbard was confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, Kiev is starting to backtrack on all of the lists, the kill lists that they had Tulsi Gabbard on. I believe she was on Miro Tvorets, or she still is on Miro Tvorets. And she was also on another Zelensky government list where they claimed that Tulsi Gabbard was on the payroll of the Kremlin. They're actually apologizing. Ukraine is actually apologizing for having her on these lists. Man. Yep. Zelensky, Ukraine, they effed up on that one, huh? Going after Tulsi Gabbard, and now she's the Director of National Intelligence, and now they're apologizing. We didn't mean to have you on the Miro Tvorets. We didn't mean to say that you're on the payroll of the Kremlin. We're sorry, Tulsi. We're sorry. Tulsi should not forget what the Zelensky regime was up to. Miro Tvorets, that's a nasty list, man. That is a nasty freaking list to be on. So the Russian Ministry of Defense, they put out a statement saying that in Kursk, remember Zelensky is saying that Kursk is going to be his big bargaining chip. He's going to trade Kursk for territory that Russia holds. So Kursk was going to be his big bargaining chip, according to the great general that is Zelensky. Well, the Russian Ministry of Defense, they put out the update on Kursk saying that it is a complete disaster for the Ukraine military. Since August, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense, 60,000 troops lost for the Ukraine military since August, just in Kursk. Just in Kursk, 60,000. That's horrific, man. That is horrific. So let's do a clown world, and we can wrap this video up. And in today's clown world, remember the story that I did on the Baltics? leaving the Russian electricity grid when I talked about that. Well, did you see the ceremony, the event for the Baltic states to leave the Russian electric grid? When I saw the event that was held to finally move the Baltics off of the Russian grid, I said, this is a clown world, man. This is without a doubt a freaking clown world. So I'm going to play the video, which is cringe and cheesy, kind of cheesy, kind of cringe, of Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and Ursula von der Crazy celebrating the moment when the Baltics are off of Russia's electricity grid. Here is the video.
Please activate the connection.
Yeah, pretty cringe, pretty creepy. Also kind of cool. I don't know. Kind of 80s, isn't it? Yeah, it's kind of 80s. But yeah, that's the celebration. That was the celebration for leaving the electricity grid. And the price, well, the price has gone way up for electricity in the Baltic states, from 72.74 on the 8th of February megawatt hours to 146.83 on the 10th of February megawatt hours. That's the price increase in just a couple of days. Congratulations, Baltics. Anyway, that's the video. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch. I am wearing my Duran sweatshirt right here. You will find the link in the description box down below. Take care.